Local stories, local voices. We're localwebradio.fm.
Welcome to Sound Investing with Byron Striloff, Senior Investment Advisor at CIBC Wood Gundy, and recognized by Vancouver Magazine in its selection of top wealth makers in Vancouver for 2013. And now, here's your host.
Well, yes, this is your host, Erik Reynolds, and I'm back again with Byron Striloff, Senior Investment Advisor at CIBC Wood Gundy, and today we're talking with Byron about maximizing old age security and minimizing the clawback. Now, this will include how dividend income affects old age security benefits, strategies people can use to help reduce the taxes and the clawbacks, and some examples of how retirees are making different investment decisions. Now, before Byron joins us, as always, if you need to reach Byron, have questions, or require assistance, you can reach him at 604-535-3700. Again, that's 604-535-3700. Well, Byron, it's great to have you back on the call today.
I'm happy to be here, Erik.
Now, Byron, we are continuing our discussion this week on how to use dividends, which are normally a tax-efficient income, but can also cause a problem for retirees by triggering higher clawbacks on our old age security pension. Now, why don't we start with how the old age security works and how other income affects it?
Yeah, it certainly sounds so simple, like a government pension that comes to you when you reach a certain age, but it can get a little difficult when you start, including it in with other types of income that retirees do more than anybody. But old age security is a taxable monthly Social Security payment available to most Canadians 65 and over. And any resident of Canada who's lived here for 40 years, will be eligible for this pension. The pension income is roughly $65.50. I think it's $65.53 for last year. It's indexed against inflation and is, of course, fully taxable, unfortunately. And one new option that I believe is coming, or is just about here, is that the government intends to allow individuals to defer this pension until age 70, just like the Canada pension plan. So if you don't need it, you can let it grow and take out more as you get older. Now, for many lower income individuals, old age security, it's a very important source of income for the day-to-day living expenses. But I'll tell you, higher earning individuals also have, or should I say, are sensitive to losing part or all of these monthly payments.
Now, Byron, I can understand how people would feel when they have their money taken away in retirement. So how exactly do pensioners lose part or all of their pension?
Well, as usual, it all comes down to income. If an individual's annual net income exceeds a certain minimum amount, and that minimum for last year was of income was $70,954, then the pension begins to be clawed back. And when I say clawed back, it gets taxed away at a higher rate. And that rate is 15 cents per dollar over and above your minimum. So for every dollar over the minimum level, you will pay an additional tax of 15 cents on the dollar. So if you do the arithmetic, the pension is taxed back entirely when the net income exceeds $114,640. But that also includes the pension you're receiving. So, there's a good a case of double taxation. But as I mentioned, that includes, adding all of the OAS pension income back to the income calculation. So once you exceed that income threshold, your pension is clawed back retroactively on the year in question, and then the next year's income is reduced based on the amount of income you reported for last year.
Well, now you mentioned that dividends, which so far have been a very good type of income to have for a higher after-tax return, can cause a problem for retirees collecting OAS by increasing the amount of clawback and reducing their pension. Now, how is that possible?
Oh boy, it's very possible. Let me try to give you a good example here where I can illustrate the problem. I actually have this 68-year-old client that just comes to mind because we just met recently. He has $76,000 worth of annual income from Canada Pension, Old Age Security, and a company pension plan. Now, they don't need any income from their non-registered investment account, and that's worth about $250,000. And at this point is invested 100% in Canadian dividend-paying stocks, which are both common and preferred. And that's basically due to the inherent risk in the current bond market, and that risk being rising interest rates. So the average dividend yield on the portfolio was 4% last year. So that produces $10,000 of eligible Canadian dividends. The tax rate on these dividends in 2013 is 10.3% for a tax bill of $1,032, which is lower than any other form of income. So that part is all good. The problem is the dividends are then grossed up by 38%, so that $10,000 becomes $13,800, which is the reportable income, and that causes the client to be clawed back $2,700 of old age security for a total tax bill of $3,102. And that we get that with the 10% dividend or 10% dividend tax of $1,032 plus the clawback of $2,070, which, as soon as you look at it, which becomes an effective tax rate on the dividends of 31%, and that's an increase of 300%. Now, I do not think a lot of Canadian retirees know this happens.
Now, Byron, I have a few more questions for you, but right now we're up against a break. So we'll be right back with Byron Striloff, Senior Investment Advisor at CIBC Wood Gundy. And when we return, we'll be discussing investment decision retirees are making to reduce taxes. We'll be right back.
More Sound Investing with Byron Striloff after this.
Buying or selling a home on the Semiahmoo Peninsula? Catch up on local market conditions on This Week in Real Estate with Lance and Connie Marples from Sutton West Coast Realty on localwebradio.fm.
If you're struggling with a dental or oral health issue, be sure to catch the Healthy Smiles Oral Health Show with Dr. Norm Ickert on the Health Channel on localwebradio.fm.
Shopping for the lowest mortgage rate? Looking to refinance?
Catch the Mortgage Newscast with Jared Dreyer
On the Business Channel
on localwebradio.fm.
It's now time for more Sound Investing with Byron Striloff, Senior Investment Advisor at CIBC Wood Gundy.
All right, we are back with Byron Striloff, and we're discussing maximizing old age security benefits and reducing taxes. Now, Byron, that was a big difference in taxes that we were talking about, which means for me, this retiree, that I have much less income to spend or save. Now, first of all, are there many people caught in this situation? And second, is there any strategy people can use to reduce the impact of clawbacks on top of taxes?
Yes, there actually are strategies to help reduce the taxes and the clawbacks, which I'll come to in a moment. And yes, there are a lot more people in this situation today than before because of the extremely low interest rate environment. Low returns on GICs and term deposits, they're driving people further out on the risk curve because the majority of people, they can't build their saving or retire on investment income of 1 to 2% a year. But on the other hand, I would be hard pressed to find a dividend fund that has not made 8 to 10% per year over the last few years. So when you consider that the biggest fear retired people have is, will they outlive their money? where do you think a lot of these savings are going? Retirees are taking on as much risk as they can tolerate to get an investment return they can live on. And for most people, dividend-paying investments, they are a good compromise between a reasonable risk level and a lot higher income, especially relative to, say, term deposits or guaranteed deposit accounts today with a lot lower income.
Now, Byron, I can understand how retirees are making different investment decisions, due to the low interest rate, environment, and moving into unfamiliar territory when it comes to risk and tax consequences. Now, how can people lower the effects of dividend income on their old age security and perhaps avoid the clawbacks?
Well, again, let me give you an example here, a real-life example. Let me go through 3 alternatives that our retiree has for investments, which we will assume all earn 4% to keep this nice and simple. That would be a bond earning interest, a stock or dividend fund earning dividends, or selecting the right corporate class mutual fund with the objective of deferring growth and not reporting any additional taxable income. Now, I will assume our retiree is not spending all of his income, is in a 35% tax bracket on the interest income, and that would make it 10% on the dividends. So if we sort of line that up, the interest earned would be $20,000. The tax paid on that would be $8,000. That would give us a clawback of $2,708 for a total liability, if you will, of $10,708. So obviously interest, is one of the least attractive. Our dividends now, our income would be grossed up to $27,000 from $20,000. With that, because of our gross up, we would have now a tax on that of $2,000. A clawback in addition to that tax of $3,847 for a total of $5,847 that the income is reduced by. So clearly dividends, are way ahead of interest. But if we go back to my corporate class mutual fund with the deferral, okay, now the client is in a position of saying, I don't want to report that income. So he has now zero income, zero tax, zero clawback for a total of 0.
Wow.
So as you can see, the end results can be very dramatic from a tax point of view. And by using corporate class investing, this allows for more tax efficiencies when compared to the majority of managed money products, which would be, managed portfolios, investment funds, mutual funds. The majority of these are operated as trusts with different tax treatment. So our objective here is to help the investors allocate investment income based on their tax preference. And this will allow investors to choose both the funds that suit their investment objectives and the tax preferences that suit their tax planning.
All right, well, Byron, hey, thanks so much for the conversation today, but I can see we are out of time. Now, for our listeners, if you know someone who would benefit from what we've talked about today, go ahead and share this podcast with them. I'm sure they'll thank you for it. And, of course, you can always visit Byron online on his website at www.byronstriloff.com. That's www.byronstriloff.com. And you can always reach Byron by telephone at 604-535-3700. Again, that's 604-535-3700. Well, Byron, as always, been a great conversation today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for listening to Sound Investing with Byron Striloff. To schedule a face-to-face conversation, you can reach Byron at 604-535-3700. That's 604-535-3700. And online at www.byronstriloff.com.
You're opted in to localwebradio.fm. Community-minded, locally focused.
This episode is a production of Jam Media. For information on hosting your own web radio show, visit jammedia.com. That's www.jambmedia.com.
The opinions expressed by our guest and host on localwebradio.fm do not necessarily reflect the views of Jam Media or its owners. No expressed or implied opinions of any product or service should be considered an endorsement or recommendation of any kind by Jam Media or its owners.